And we are live. JT here, and welcome to The Huddle. The Huddle is where I sit down with successful people from the world of sport and coaching. It's to learn more about their journey to greatness. Why do I have these conversations? Because success always leaves clues. I want to take a moment to thank you, whether you are watching on YouTube or on Facebook, or whether you're listening to the audio on the podcast. Thank you so much for being here with me and my special guest today. And here's my friendly reminder to you. The mind is like a parachute. It works best when it's wide open. So my challenge to you is to go all in on this conversation, to remove any distractions and get laser focus on the here and the now. And I guarantee you, you will gain a valuable nugget of wisdom that will not only help you succeed in sport, but more importantly, in the game of life. I've been looking forward to my conversation with my special guest today. We had the opportunity to connect a little while ago, and it was just interesting, just a great reminder on how life's all divine timing. My guest in the huddle today is currently serving as one of our coaches with our U14 Team Ontario men's tackle program. He's also the creator and founder of Out the Chamber. My guest in the huddle today is Shamawd Chambers. How are you today, brother?
Not bad, man. Thank you for having me. And thank you for anybody who decided to take the time to watch this conversation. Should be fun.
Absolutely, brother. And before we get kicked off, pun intended, I want to take a moment just to remind myself on the importance of counting your blessings. For me, it's a daily practice. Some days I do it better than others. But I do find the days where I'm most consistent with counting my blessings, I do find those days are filled with a little bit more love, a little bit more joy, a little bit more peace. And I'm a big believer that the biggest blessing you can give anyone is your time and energy. So just want to thank you again, brother, for blessing us with some of your time and energy here today.
Likewise, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come on and talk about my journey a little bit.
Awesome. So, one of the things that I often like to remind people as we get kicked off in the huddle is that life is a game and games are supposed to be fun. I had a great coaching colleague and a great friend who used to remind me that, hey, we all have these things that make us unique and different, and it's our responsibility to just celebrate it. So I'm curious, what's an interesting fact about you that maybe a lot of people don't know that you'd be open to sharing with our community today?
What's an interesting fact about me? Maybe I'm a I'm a super gamer, that's for sure. I'm a
Mm.
super gamer. Me and my friends growing up, we've always kind of been uh really interested in tech and stuff like that. And I don't even know how I can maybe is, being a young parent and stuff like that, sometimes escaping your mind from everything else
Mm.
is it's the easiest thing to do. One of my friends' dad always told us that we mastered the most useless thing that we possibly could. But when you would know, like when you have kids and like there you have things going on, you have to have one guilty pleasure. And I think that I know that's
Yeah.
kind of the weird thing to say at the beginning of this conversation, but I think that's probably my guilty pleasure.
Yeah, no, I can appreciate that. And I think any of our parents, any of our leaders that are parents know that sometimes just having some alone time where you don't really have to think much and you don't have to, hey, do this, do that. It's important. I'm curious, is what's your vice? And if there's a type of game, is it sports? Is it role playing? Kind of what's your games of
Right,
choice?
right now, just I'm kind of a there's this game called Apex. It's kind of takes a similar role of like I don't know if you know like Hunger Games, how like it's like a big map and it just kind of squeezes down. The reason why I like it is because it's like a 20-minute game, right? So it's 20 minutes. You might die in the first 5 seconds, or you might play for 20 minutes and then it's over. And then after that, you can restart and go, and you can just turn it off. And you don't need anything but a controller and Wi-Fi. You don't
Mm.
need to buy a online pass. You don't need to buy anything. So I like that. Like I don't really want to be too invested in anything. I just want to play the game and be done when I want to be done.
Mm, sounds simple, sounds short and sweet.
Yeah, exactly. Boom, boom,
Okay.
boom. Okay, done.
Okay. Okay. Um, so it's interesting, right? And it's sort of a great reminder that sort of reset mentality that sports often, teaches us. So I'm curious, Shamawd, sport has obviously played an important role for you in your life. First you were a high quality athlete, right? Who achieved a lot of success, both individually and as a team. First at the grassroots, the high school, U Sport, CIS level, and then at the professional level. And then you've transitioned now to where you are helping, supporting, you're serving athletes as a coach. So it's obviously very evident sport has played an important role for you in your life. What is one life lesson you've taken from sport that you still find yourself applying to your life today?
I think the ability to turn a good day into or a bad day into a good day, or even better, a bad moment into a great day. I felt like, once there's crazy things when you're playing professional sports, and then after that you come into the real world a little bit more. And in sports, you can have a bad day or a bad period in practice and change it immediately. Whereas in life, it doesn't necessarily happen as fast as you would like it to. Like literally, you can have a play where you drop a touchdown and the crowd is roaring and goes to complete silence, and you can feel completely terrible about that happening. And the very next play, catch another touchdown for a touchdown, catch another catch for a touchdown, and change the entire dynamic of your situation. But in life, it kind of feels like it sometimes it doesn't necessarily happen as fast
Mhm.
as you would like it to, as the way sports did. But I think one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is just the simple fact of, just those constant days. There's a lot of days when you're coming up in this game and you're trying to become a professional athlete that you're not really paying attention to how much you're actually putting in that footwork, right? And I realize now that I'm 4 years, 3 years removed from actually playing in a game, that I'm kind of in the same stages where, you have your freshman year, your sophomore year, your junior and your senior year before things start to change again. So I like to use those timelines and those just those life lessons to be able to understand that like you need to be patient with life.
Mhm.
Some of the biggest things that you learn about playing football, and for me, is like through injury, I learned patience as well, because you can't run as fast as you can when you get hurt, because you have to ease yourself into it, right? So
Mhm.
I think patience, I think understanding that, like, having the understanding that a lot of things aren't as bad as what you think.
Mhm.
And then when you actually open your eyes and look outside and recognize the fact that like there's a lot of things that people are struggling with today and how blessed we are.
Mhm.
Um, I think when I'm able to like have my eyes set to those things, it
Mhm.
always allows me to have like good moments and be able to have those things push me into the gates of being like, okay, today's not necessarily the way you want it to be, but that doesn't mean the next hour needs to be, and that doesn't mean the people who are around you for that day have to feel the effects of what you have going on when you woke up this morning. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I think
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's interesting. And what it really sounded like was, your ambition, your drive, your open-mindedness, your coachability allowed you as a high quality athlete to achieve levels of success on the field, right? It allowed you to achieve a lot of individual and team accomplishments. But it sounds like what it's really taught you at this stage and over the last in your transition away from actively, being in sports to where now you're sort of that guidance, that coach, that mentor is the importance of that patience and understanding. And that old cliche that many leaders in sport talk about is like trusting the process, that great things take time. um
Mhm.
so I'm curious, was there a moment where you really started to understand or really place greater value on the importance of practicing patience and understanding?
I think when I became a father, I have a daughter named Spares. She's 4 years old. You probably would have met her on the weekend. And I think that was the point where I recognized that you know, when you have kids, like it's just you realize like every day, like I'm gonna be. There's no time that you're not a parent. Like my mom's still a parent. I'm 35. I'm about to be 35 in a couple months, but my mom still takes on a role as being a parent. So you know that there's certain jobs that you just don't lose. You know what I mean? So I think
Mhm.
that me actively being able to think about the times that I have because when you're busy and you have time with your kids, you want to make sure you're present with them, right? Because you don't have all the time in the world. And I think I'm one person who can really understand that you just never know what life has to offer. You never know when your time is done and when
Mhm.
how much time you get with people. So you should like really cherish it. And I think having a daughter and trying to, how do I say it, like galvanize that relationship and build that strength in that relationship really took me to the point where I started to understand patience and more kindness and more understanding. And then it was almost, even through my coaching, I always have to understand that like who's really, like, I'm giving a lot to other people, but make sure that you're giving these things to the people who are in your household, your family, your
Mhm.
friends, faith. Make sure that you're cementing yourself in those ways so you can give to the people who are outside of your main household, or the people who shape your mind. Because if something happens there in that little frame of people that you really love, you're not going to be able to do this the effective way that you wanted to. So I think that being patient with my time, understanding it with my daughter has allowed me to really be successful on the second walk of my life.
Mhm. Sounds like what has happened since you became a father was this idea of like this patience and understanding has actually allowed you to shift your perspective, right? Sounds like your perception muscle has gotten stronger. It's learning to appreciate those simple moments of joy, to really have a sense of gratitude for all the blessings that have come into your life and are going to come
Absolutely.
into your life.
Absolutely. Like I can just take it down in a road where the end of my career wasn't really the way that I saw it going. Like
Mhm.
if you ask every single athlete, you want to end your career on the podium,
Mhm.
championship, MVP. I know this isn't all the most realistic things in the world, but I was released. I was released and I wasn't healthy when I was released. And that changed my perspective for a little bit of time on the entirety of the game. And I sat down with somebody and they said to me, when there's certain things are blimps in the radar. No one ever remembers these things when you sit down and you think about it. But he said not to be. One of my close friends said to me, you can't be jaded by an entire experience of things when you've had so much success and one thing went wrong and now you're upset about the entirety of it. And when he said that, I was like, wow, because you don't recognize how football's blessed me with everything that I have. Everything. There's nothing that I don't have in relationships that I've built or mentality that I have that I didn't gain through athletics and sports, and me having just such strong male figures throughout my entire life. Like there was never a year or a point in my life that I didn't have a very strong male figure that was helping me. Even if they didn't know what it took to make it to the CFL or the NFL, they still put their best foot forward to make sure that I got there. So
Mhm.
um, I think those, yeah, yeah. I think I kind of went off a little bit, but
Well, and it's interesting, right? And as you were sharing that, I had this great analogy. I remember I read it once where they said if someone gave you $1,000 and you lost a $10 bill, would you throw away the remaining $990? And I remember thinking, like, that's similar to what you're talking about. Like, you're going to have these moments where, you lose, where adversity strikes, challenges, change. But then again, it's like counting those blessings, counting that 990, those wins, that's what shifts the perspective. And that's what really gets you to see the big picture of what this is really about.
absolutely. Like you think about it, if we use the perspective of like our U14 development team, like when you think about football, it's like where everybody's elevating. It's just like in life, right? With age, everybody's elevating, but as you go further in life, one person comes out, two, three. So you might elevate to the point that you're in your 10th year by yourself. You don't have any
Mhm.
friends anymore that are playing with you. They have
Mhm.
kids, families, and like for me, for a long period of time, that's what was happening
Mhm.
where a lot of my friends, some of them only played professional sports for 1 year, some
Mhm.
play three. I had an opportunity to to get 8 years, and I had two major injuries and still played. So, you could say like, man, you had those injuries, but I was around for a long period of time and got to live out a childhood dream,
Mm,
which not everybody gets that opportunity. Some people, their football stops in high school. Some people, their football stops in college, and they never get to do that again. So when you think about the perspective of being able to carry that torch and keep going,
mhm,
you have to count your blessings, and you don't really recognize your the network you have
mhm,
with football until you're done,
mhm,
especially professional. You play with, if you count the amount of guys that come into the locker room every year in professional sports, you're going to get like 125 people, and then there's going to be people who are going to circulate through the bottom. So you're going to meet 150, 200 people a year. Like if you think about it, plus the other guys on the team. So if you're meeting all these people, because especially if you're not on a great team, the bottom half of that team is going to get circulated. So you're going to get guys coming in. You're getting guys, especially in the CFL, that are coming in at after camps done in the NFL. You're meeting so many people, and you don't even recognize some of those people. Imagine you met 150 people a year, and one of those people a year becomes something big. You never know. The Rock
mhm.
played in the CFL. Look where he is now. So you know what I mean? So you
Yeah,
just don't know your teammates and what they will become.
yeah,
And then it might be 5, 10 years down the road, and you're looking on TV and you see when your teammates coaching Auburn or
yeah,
doing something massive. You know what I mean? Where you're like, wow, you're one person away from that. Now that's a direct connection. You have no idea. But I think that those are the things that you take away from playing sports, that you will meet so many people along the way. You'll elevate, you'll lose people along the way, but
mhm,
like your network is monstrous, and you just
mhm.
have to be able to learn how to untap it.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you share because I think of how we first connected, right? And probably because we're from the same hometown, and seeing what you accomplished, right, throughout your athletic career. Again, I've always kind of seen from afar what you've been up to. And it was interesting how when we had our first conversation a few months ago, it was interesting how that one conversation of how we're here now today, right? And you think of all the things that have changed, right? The one thing I really got from our first conversation was like something inside he was saying, I'm ready to like do more coaching. I'm ready to give back. So I'm curious, what was the inspiration for you to want to be part of this Team Ontario process?
I have different inspirations. I'll tell you
Okay.
all of my inspirations. My first inspiration is just a simple fact that I always said when I got to this point in my life that I was going to circle my way back. Now I've been watching Team Ontario and like the Team Canada like social pages for a while, and I just thought to myself, I have a mentor. His name's Hugh Lawson. He went to Wilfrid Laurier University with me,
Mhm.
and I think I told you this story about just him talk. We were talking about before I even started my business out the chamber. I was telling him about like, man, I want things to be different here. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like one of the things that I've heard constantly, especially from a youth sports to professional level, was that like, the development with kids and like the differences with American and Canadians, which, if I can just say quickly, we have 35 million people, they have 350 million people. It's not even remotely the close. But the fact that we're closely around them, it should be, by Kappa, we're a lot closer than when we think. Um, I wanted, I feel like there's a way to play the game. I feel like there's knowledge of the game that I was like, okay, there's a opportunity to work with these kids, but there's also opportunity to work with coaches and these young coaches who are going along with their journey. Yes, I'm a young coach as well, but I had an opportunity to be around a lot of real high level coaches and network to those people. And it's almost like getting information from these people and trying to feeding into your networks and into the environments that you're in, because if you can kind of monopolize the way that something's happening, then everyone's going to start playing the game the same way
Mhm.
if you can build something correctly, right? And when I sat down with you and I sat down with Coach Parks, Coach Parks and I had really similar ideas. And not only that, but we had similar backgrounds with the coaches that we've worked with as well. So it was something for me where I was like, on a personal level and on a developmental level, I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of not a change, but to elevate. And I thought that that was incredibly important for me, and for me to be able to do that for the kids in this province.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's funny, because you're going to get to the point where these kids are going to come up to me in 4 years, 5 years from now, and say, "Do you remember?" And that's going to be the point, because I remember every single time that that's happened to me. I remember every single conversation I had with a professional athlete. I remember walking in the Renaissance when I was in high school, or when I was in just going into university, with my high school football coach, going to see G. Roy Simon, and him talk to me about what it takes to get to where I am. And then me being a rookie, scoring my first touchdown, and him congratulating me when I got there. And I know that there's opportunities, and I've had those same opportunities with guys that when I recruited them to come to Laurier, they went to Laurier, I played pro, they got the pro, and them telling me, "Do you remember this?" So I know all these full circle experiences I've had already as a young man. I want to continue to have those, because you never know. It just takes one. It
Mm-hmm.
just takes one of these kids to set it off, and then it changes the whole dynamic of everyone's life. So that
Mm-hmm.
was my first reason. Like, I'm here, I'm in the Markham Stouffville area. There's no reason for me not to be going outside. I have enough time, and yell at kids a little bit and
Yeah.
get things going.
Yeah.
Also, with that, I felt like there's different levels that I've been able to work with. I've been working with, right when I came out of playing professional sports, I started working with hockey players. The reason why I wanted to do that is because I wanted to learn a different sport, the biomechanics of another sport, but I wanted to learn a different style of person. Like, I'll give you an example. If you were to go into the Silver Stick U16 minor hockey AAA tournament, you're going to see the exact same thing from a lot of these kids. They're all in suits, ties. They all look a certain way. They carry themselves a certain way. And then when you work with these kids, they are very well mannered. I honestly can seriously say, because I had to ask myself this question after, is if I said thank you every single time I had a workout, because when I'm working with these kids, that's what they're doing. It changed my perspective. And then it was like, I love this, but like, I really love football. And like, football was a point for me. I needed some time away from it, but I wanted to get back to it. And for me, I want to coach at the highest level. I haven't really like put myself in like sat down with myself and manifested exactly how I see this going in like 10 years. But I know that football was giving me a lot in my life, and me just giving my time back to it usually opens up doors that even you weren't thinking about going through.
Mm-hmm.
And once that happens, you're right. You're where you want to be. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, on a professional level, I obviously wanted to I put myself in a situation where I worked with CFL athletes. I've worked with a couple NFL guys. I've worked with NHL guys, OHL guys. I've worked with all types of athletes on different stages. But the
Mm-hmm.
thing that's been tough is not being able to have them on a regular basis. Like, what is it like to see someone every day? How can you develop someone if you get to see them every day? And that's where the point where it's like, okay, I want to coach at it. I want to coach at a high level, so you can get those stats when you can start building things the right way. And I have dreams of those things. I have to keep some of them to myself just because I
Yeah.
want to keep them tight. But I wanna put myself in a situation where I can give what all these coaches have given to me,
Mm-hmm.
and the systems and the ideas of trying to get kids to be able to play at a pro level or just a high level. It excites me as well. So I want to coach at the U Sports level. I want to have a good role at the U Sports level. I think when I played in U Sports, there weren't a lot of people who looked like me that were there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think after the fact, when I left, that especially at Laurier, where I went, and the schools surrounding the areas, there was a big influx in diversity at those universities. I'm
Mhm.
not going to say that it's. I think I was a part of a change, a part of it, not the change, a part of the change.
Mhm.
And I think having people like myself at those high levels, like my first head coach and second general manager at the CFL level was Kavis Reed, was a young black man, and Ed
Mhm.
Hervey, who was a young black man, and he was one of the first. I'm pretty sure he was the first black general manager to win in the CFL. So you're
Mhm.
sitting down, you're looking at those things, and as a young man myself, I never thought to think to being that because I never had those experiences.
Mhm.
I never had a black man to be my head coach,
Mhm.
so I never knew that that was possible. I never
Mhm.
knew that you could be a general manager. But now I'm seeing how those things are coming to fruition. I'm saying, well, I know so much about this game, and I can relate to so many different people, which is gives me a leg up a little bit because anything else can be developed, but that feeling that you have to people, those are things that you only know based off if you got it or you don't. But
Mhm.
when it comes to X's and O's, you can teach anyone those things. But it's that gut feeling that you have, you know what I mean? So,
Mhm.
I want to be able to give that to them. And I want my family to feel that. We're a football family and we're an athletic family. And I have a young daughter. I want her to be around that stuff. I want her
Mhm.
to be proud of me. I want her she didn't get to see me play, but she can be on the field with me when I coach.
Mhm.
So it's just those things that excite me to be able to want to be a part of these things. And you meet people, and this is how coaching always is. I meet Coach Parks and we gain a relationship. I meet all these people and we regain relationships. And, that's what makes this stuff exciting.
Mhm. First off, I hope everyone sort of caught what you were first saying. And it's interesting how, you chose to want to start this journey of coaching and, at that U14 level, right? Coming back in the football world. And why it resonates with me is that idea of like you were mentioning a few minutes ago about the importance of like practicing patience and understanding, right? And it's interesting, we live in an interesting time where everyone kind of social media shows everyone's highlight reels of, where the win, the finish line is. And, you know, and that's great having big dreams, but really, are you willing to go all in at the grassroots, right? Because that's where the change has to happen, right? So I
Absolutely.
really want to take a moment really to acknowledge you for being all in, because a lot of leaders talk about being all in, but you're someone who's actually not talking the talk, but you're walking the walk. So that was the first thing. The second thing I'm curious about is, you talked about yourself sort of being uh, being part of the change, right? Like challenging people in a loving way to elevate, right, the trajectory of their life. And I think it's so interesting because, having this conversation now, you look at how our diversity and our beautiful game has changed, right? It's a beautiful thing. Even just so we're
Absolutely.
looking at facts. Four of the 11 OUA head coaches now are are people of color. So you just look at it, it's like, what is that leading for the next generation? Like our kids, like what is that? Like now they're starting to see, oh, and that's what's possible.
Yeah, and absolutely. Like you have a background in education, so you understand this as well. I remember in my first year of university, I had a paper on it was on just I think it was just on education, literally. And one of the things that I found that was really interesting is something that they said is the first 4 or 5 years of a kid's um like his student life, if he has somebody or a teacher that he looks like, they have a 30% chance to doing better. So you're
Mm,
sitting down and saying in a sport that's predominantly diverse, right? There's and you want to be able to give people in those diversity sectors an idea of what they can become, right? Because there's nothing more important than that. I promise you. There's nothing more important than seeing someone who's a little bit ahead of you, who looks just like you, or just diverse, doesn't have to look just like you, just have that opportunity to be able to make change. Because when you sit down, when you're a coach and you you sit down in people's living rooms, if they still do that, or you're having dinner with people, and sometimes you might have a family that isn't from Canada, right? They have no idea anything about football, nothing. But there's a man who they can resonate with, or those experiences of life of understanding. Like my son, I don't know anything about football. And there's a lot of us who are first generations playing football, and our families knew nothing.
Mhm.
But if there was somebody that they could relate to, it was easier. And I know my mom always found it easier to, like, when I was in Edmonton, she had no, like, she loved it because it was an opportunity for me to grow in multiple ways, not only just a football player. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for that opportunity to see those two men at those positions, because I knew what was capable for me. For me
Mhm.
now, I'm like, man, how far do you want to take this? Because you can go however far. And you know, I think it's really important for us to be able to sit down at a grassroots level, just to for something that you were saying before about patience and stuff like that. One thing that I pushed on before was it's easy to coach pros. What's hard about coaching pros is getting guys on the same page, right? Like, whereas I can stop practice on on Saturday and kind of yell, and everyone's like, "Yeah," we're in pros. You can't do that type of stuff because we're all grown men here. So
Yeah.
like you get that perspective, and the struggles are different than it is when you're working with 14-year-olds. And you got to just keep them focused, like get them to understand the details. And that's the reason why I wanted to do that, because you don't have to work on details when you're working with pros, because they're supposed to know. These kids don't know. So it allows you to actually tap in to relearning details, right? It's
Mhm.
like going back to stage A to just tell someone how to line up. So you can, like, just that can just be in your head a million times. And that was really why I wanted to do that. I was like, yeah, it could be cool to coach U18, but those guys think they know everything.
Yeah.
These kids are fresh. They don't know anything, and they're ready to learn. And that's what you want.
Mm. So I'm curious, beyond, again, great reminder on the power of simple and effective communication, right? The importance of being to speak so simply and clearly that a 10-year-old could understand. I remember having a good business coach often reminded me that that was a very important skill in business. Uh, I'm curious, through the start of this process, has there been a moment that has really jumped out to you that has just sort of reinforced, hey, like this is where I'm supposed to be right now. Like this U14 thing, I'm gonna continue to do it because it's filling my soul.
Yeah, it was driving to Waterloo in the snowstorm first. It was getting to Waterloo and seeing everybody. And like I got there and I was like, I'm like, I'm getting, because I know what I'm back into. I know punctuality is the greatest thing in football. All you got to do is be on time, right? And you'll be all right. I got there right on time, which means I'm correct. I'm kind of late, right? So at that point, there's certain times that you're sitting there and you're like, how do you act? Do you like jump in there and like just, take it? And we ended up just jumping in there. But this is, besides that, I had an experience with this one kid, and the parents were all sitting on the glass as well, so they can see the kind of the the back and forth that we were having. So, and it was something that the coaches and I talked about after. Like, there was one kid, he wanted reps, so he was jumping the line, and we noticed he jumped the line. We said, you got to go back. And he kind of kissed his teeth and said, how am I supposed to get my reps? And I said, you'll get your reps, don't worry about it. And he kissed his teeth again and kind of brushed me off. So now I'm looking at it, all the kids are seeing him do this. I have to be very mindful right now, because I have to remind myself of myself, right? I have to put myself, I know that I can't do this all the time, but you have to put yourself in the shoes of the kid. First of all, it's 8:30 in the morning, right? We're in Waterloo. It's a blizzard. We have no idea what happened in the morning when he was at home. At home. We don't know what's happening at home. We have no idea. So this field might be his outlet. So he's acting out, but he's not acting out because he's trying to be rude. He wants reps. So I can't be mad at someone for actually wanting to compete. But I have to bring you down a notch because you can't be disrespectful. because you have to learn those things. So I think that having that discussion with him and then watching him kind of like fix his energy and his body language throughout the rest of the practice, and the parents all there watching that happening, made me know that I was like, I'm here, and this is like, I like this. Like this is a new dynamic to things. Like you want to always be able to work in different age groups. I heard Mike Tomlin say something about coaches being afraid to coach. Coaches want to be with the best guys because they don't want to coach. They want to be able to just draw it up and let it happen. But if you want to be a great coach, it's not the great students that you want to be working with. You want to be working with the students that aren't that great, because those are
Mhm.
the ones that are going to really show you the most. It's just like in school and at the academic, applied, and workplace. Who are the easiest kids to work with? The academic kids, because you just put the work down and they do it. The applied kids gets a little bit harder, and the workplace kids it's harder. But where is it more rewarding? In those two places before this, because you're supposed to do this. We don't care if you do what you're already supposed to do. I want to know what the kids who are struggling a little bit and where they go to. Because I know for me, I was one of those kids who struggled, but I was very bright. But you didn't know what was going on at home, and you didn't know, like,
Mhm.
and for me, I might not have learned the same way as everybody else, but clearly I'm pretty bright. It's
Mhm.
just a simple fact of how you're teaching and what's going on. Like maybe something's going on at home. Maybe he didn't get up well this morning. Maybe, you know what I mean? All those things come into really understanding that, like, this is real life.
Mhm.
If it wasn't for football, there was times that I had things going on where football was the only outlet.
Mhm.
So it was, and my coaches didn't even know my reactions could have been something that was going on at home. I was angry, I was upset, I was frustrated, and I'd come to practice, and football was the only outlet. Weight room was the only outlet, and that's the reason why I was able to look at him and say, "Don't forget what it was like to have tough days and only have this field."
Mhm.
And like when you have those, and when you can relate to those things, you can take that kid and turn him into a monster,
Mhm.
because those same emotions that he's feeling, and
Mhm.
those same emotions that are frustrating him, if you can help turn him those emotions around and use it in a positive way, which football allows a lot of the time, because there is a little bit of violence that you can do in those white lines that you don't want anyone to do outside of them. So you want to bring it to the field,
Mhm.
get all that energy out of you so you can feel like you did something. And I know I had a lot of those days. So I knew that feeling, and I wanted to be able to not push it away, but bring it towards and say that kid has to come to developmental camp because he can play,
Mhm.
but also because we need to be able to coach those kids, not the good kids only.
Mhm.
So we need to take some kids who we see as have little character issues, little things like that, so we can help fix it,
Mhm.
because that's important.
Mhm. I appreciate you sharing, part of your journey. And as you were sharing, a couple things came up, where you mentioned about, football for on some days was your only outlet. And, anyone that was blessed to watch you play on the field knows that there are certain times where I've seen you catch the ball and the way you run after the catch, running through tackles, you could tell it was, I'm going to use this energy in a productive way and make a play, score a touchdown. So
Yeah, it was
that was a
personal.
memory.
Yeah, it was
Um,
personal. It was
yeah.
always personal for me when I went out there,
Yeah.
because I
Um,
always used something that was going on outside to fuel what was going to happen on that field.
mm,
So anything that anyone heard me say, I can say this right now. I apologize. But it was the same thing like when you heard Tom Brady talking about this, like you sometimes the motivation comes from nothing. Someone can say something to you that's so little, or I can seriously just look at you like you're a part of the problem. You're blocking me from getting to where I need to be. And
mm,
I made that stuff fuel me. Even if you didn't like me, it was never personal. It was something
yeah.
personal in my head,
Yeah.
but it wasn't about the defenders. It was just it's the game.
Um, you also shared something really powerful, and it reminded me of a great quote, and I'll sort of paraphrase it by Stephen Covey, where he talked about it's far more important to understand than to be understood. And I really want to take a moment just to acknowledge you because the easy thing for you in that situation with that young man would have been just no, I'm gonna tell you exactly why you need to listen. right? And just come from that place. No, you're going to understand from my perspective why you don't, why you wait your turn for reps, why you don't kiss your teeth off, and why you don't do all that. But you taking the time to be like, wait, whoa, 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 whoa. Patience, understanding, who knows what has happened before he got here. So I'm just going to take a breath. I'm going to practice patience and understanding. Like I think that that ability to understand where he was coming from, to sort of see the world through his lens, walk a mile in his shoes. I mean, speaks volumes about who you are as a leader, brother.
I appreciate that. And I think like, we can only lean on the experiences of life. And like for me personally, I had a lot of days on that football field where I was not happy about what was going on off of it. And someday, a lot of the days I fueled it for the right things, but sometimes it wasn't. And sometimes like you hear all types of athletes when they have things personally going on, having reactions on the field or on the court. And you just want to be able to have coaches around you that will be able to to see that, because some kids, if you're not overly talented, you're not even getting an opportunity. If you have that type of attitude, like if you have an attitude that people feel like they can't be coached. But for me, I'm looking at kids like that, like I'm excited for this. like,
Mm-hmm.
like I can even bring up points of just working with some of my like my not even my NHL athletes, just my minor league hockey guys. Like I have kids who you can see the differences between their lifestyle, like their, what their parents do and everything, and the way that they are. And then there's other kids who are a little bit more rough on the edges. But once you hear their stories, you're like, you get it. Like
Mm-hmm.
you understand why you'd be that way. But those are the ones that you really want to like make sure you're staying by, because those are the stories. I'm one of those stories that
Mm-hmm.
like I had a coach, Greg Pretty at Markham District High School, who like if it wasn't for him and maybe one and my principal, Miss Clark, I don't know if I'd be exactly where I got to. But I had a dream and I told them my dream and they made sure that I did that. And like my coach Pretty knew the things that sometimes were happening or what was going on personally for me, and he always just tried to use it as a listen to fuel me, right? And you need to have those types of people around, because some coaches will just say we don't want those kids with those attitudes and dismiss that kid, and that kid, after he gets released, or if he gets cut from that team, he might go to the streets.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? He might go to the streets. He might start getting himself into some trouble. And I always look at football as a sport that you take those kids and you turn them into men, and you
Mm-hmm.
help turn them into men, because those are the stories you want to know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's interesting, right? Um, you give an important reminder, right? That football is a wonderful tool, a great tool. It's a vehicle to teach and reinforce greater life lessons, right? It sounds like you've had great, teachers and coaches and mentors that have, given you a lot of time and energy and enthusiasm. How important has having great mentors in your life been for you, and the level of success you've been able to achieve as an athlete or even in the game of life?
I think it's like a combination of things. I think and like this would be my advice to a lot of young athletes or people, that you should always have mentors. I think that it's really good to have mentors who aren't like really close at age with you, little bit above, just because, you know, I think it's you need to be able to see someone and their life, but you have to understand your own. And I think it's hard as you're coming up to like be able to see that. But a lot of the times you still like life still has to you still have to make your own decisions, right? Like your mentors can show like literally show you the way, but sometimes life doesn't like necessarily pan out for you the way that it does for other people. But it's
Mhm.
always good to have those and be in those environments with people who you just see something that you like from them. Like for me, my I always had guys who were older than me when I went to university. I lived with third year guys, which necessarily wasn't the greatest thing because they already understood how to do their schoolwork,
Yeah.
but I already knew what to expect, right? There's things that I was privy to that a first year wasn't going to be privy to. When I got into the pros, like a lot of the older guys took me under the ring, like a guy like Fred Stamps, who's been playing in the who played in the CFL, might be in the Ring of Honor in Edmonton. Um, having guys like that really made it easier. Andre Dury and I would say Ricky Foley. I used to hang out with them in my first year. They were like 5-year vets, grown men, kids, everything. But I just liked being around them because they already were established. So I could understand how to get that done faster. And
Mm-hmm.
it ended up being that way. And keeping those relationships and stuff like that and showing and keeping good face with those relationships, you just don't know. Like business ends up coming full circle. We all have the same attributes and the same love. And, being able to have those mentors really, even Hugh Lawson, like I told you, when I remember in my first year of university, I was struggling and I wasn't allowed to practice or lift with the team. And like that was tough for me. And Hugh would pick me up every Friday and we'd go out to eat and we just talk. And then after that, he went to the coaches and he told them he's going to start bringing me to practice so I can watch. And then before you know it, like I remember the whole offseason, I ended up working out by myself. But that relationship with you kept me sane, right? Uh, because like, everybody's gone to practice. I didn't have any friends outside of my the football team. Like you can't even have friends if you're a football player outside of the football team. Everybody would go to practice and I'd be by myself. And he would drive up from Mississauga to come and see me, or from Brampton to come and see me. We'd go to Starbucks, we'd eat, talk, and then after that, we'd drive over to practice to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And you're sitting there, and like he was one of the reasons what kept me there. And those are the things that I don't forget. I don't forget these things. I don't forget Rohan Thompson when I was struggling at Laurier, coming and talking to me, sitting down with me to try to make me a better student athlete. I don't forget these things. So
Mm-hmm.
I just know that I want to have that impact. And with my resources and network, I can really do that. Like I can really, really do that. And I want to be able to do that. And I want to do it at the highest level.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to be able to affect a lot of different rooms. And, like I said, just coming to the fact of being back and coaching the U14 group, it's just to be able, that's just the beginning of it for me. And I'm enjoying it.
Mm, I love that, brother. I want to be respectful of your time and energy. So I got one last question for you. Uh, Again, we're so blessed to have you as part of our U14 staff. Again, brother, you're a strong and powerful leader. Uh, what advice would you give if, we had one of our U14s come up to you, 12, 13 years old, and it just, coach, what is one nugget of wisdom you could share with me that will not only help me be a better student athlete, but really help me, be a better human being? What words of wisdom would you share with them?
At 12 or 14, 12 to 12, 13, 14 years old, I'm trying to think about, I would say to them, it's so hard. I would say like I would say to not allow anybody to kill their dream. I don't care what it is. If I don't care if you want to play in the NFL and you are not, and you're not capable, right? Like I don't care about what anyone says. I remember being that age and wanting to play in the NFL. And for me, just going to Philadelphia for rookie camp and being in that room, in that environment, cemented that for me because I'm a kid from Markham, first generation Canadian. I had a dream and I did it. Andy Reid walked up to me and said, "Congratulations getting drafted to Edmonton." And that was the craziest thing I've ever seen. Like craziest thing in the world because you have these dreams as a kid and so many people will tell you you are not going to do that. There's no way you'll play in the NFL. There's no way you'll play pro football, right? And I think that like constantly, I just told myself what I was capable of doing, and I believed in myself. So if there's any advice I would give young kids, it would be set a goal, set a dream, and believe in yourself. The goal, the dream, and the goal. It's funny because people, not everybody gets to achieve their goals and not everybody gets to get to their dreams, but the people who set goals and set dreams and press themselves to the limit to get to where they want to go are usually 10 times better than the people who give up at the door.
Mhm.
I would say to anybody that in life, lots of things can go on.
Mhm.
Lots of obstacles can be in front of you. But if you just stick with that dream, even if you don't get to the stars and you land, like what is it? Shoot for the stars and land on the moon.
Mhm.
You there's life is so much longer than playing sports and playing professional sports, but it's not about actually how long you stay there or getting there. It's just about setting that goal and working endlessly to
Mhm.
get there, endlessly. And you know what's crazy? If you actually feel that way, you will be there. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that a lot of the times it's all about manifesting dreams. And a lot of the time, manifesting dreams is truly believing that you're capable of seeing something and being somewhere and just doing that. So
Mhm.
my advice to young kids would just be to dream and never to lose sight of that dream. I don't care
Mhm.
what happens. Never lose sight of that dream.
Mhm.
Never lose sight and don't let anyone else tear that away from you because we're in a world of a lot of people who did not that didn't know what that's like, but just dream. Don't be afraid to dream. You can be a 34-year-old man and still dream. You can be 40 and dream. It doesn't make a difference. You just got to keep dreaming because in life, it's just simply this. No matter what, if you dream and work your ass off to get to wherever you want to go, you will be better suited than if you never tried.
Mhm.
Just put your best foot forward and try your best and
Mhm.
you will be better off than all of your friends. I would never ever feel any way about the sacrifices I've made in my life, not going to parties, not drinking when I was younger, not doing drugs, not partying as much because all those parties ended up happening after. But there's a lot of time you got to sacrifice. You
Mhm.
got to sacrifice, and the sacrifices will pay off.
Mhm.
That's about it, though. I think.
Yeah. No, I love it. Simple reminder and the power of dreaming about, flexing your imagination muscle and just, wanting more and realizing you're deserving of it and all great reminders. So, brother, yeah, would love to know. I know that our conversation today is going to pique some interest. Someone's going to have their interest piqued about Team Ontario, or they want to learn about what you're growing without the chamber. Yeah, what's the best way people could follow, support you along your journey? Yeah, are you active on social anywhere?
Yeah, I'm active. I'm kind of active on socials. You can follow me at Shamawd Chambers 7, SHAMAWD CHAMBERS 17. I think I said 7 or 17. Sorry about that. And or out the chamber. That's kind of a lot easier to spell. Both on Instagram and then my Twitter, same thing, Shamawd. I think it's just Shamawd Chambers. Uh, and yeah, and if you my email, shamadc@gmail.com. And if there's any ADs watching, I'm interested. but but yeah, so and yeah, without the chamber, we're a speed and agility company, which ended up we started off working with actually I mean hockey players and stuff like that, just because it was a different market. We've moved back into working with skill position receivers, defensive backs. Last year we had a great number of pro athletes and some youth sport guys come out and work with us. Zach Caleros, Bo Levi Mitchell, and Trey Ford headlined at quarterback, and we had like a stable of receivers of kids who were probably all from Ontario, all had all their professional athletes and stuff like that. I'm blessed and lucky for them to be able to look at me as somebody that they'll come in and work with. Me and Zach obviously played together when we were in Hamilton and been trying to work some stuff out with him. I don't know if you saw that he was with the Kelsey brothers for that Buffalo game. So, you know, just being able to get that room together is really what made me say, yo, it's time to go back into football. If you can work with these guys, you want to work with younger guys because those younger guys might be those guys later, and
Mhm.
then the stretch of time that you get to work with them is longer. So that's what we're doing, and yeah, it's exciting times.
Mhm.
It's slow right now just because it's January and everybody's just getting back, ramping up into things. but we should be getting a lot of things going in the months coming, so it should be fun.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. And I'm happy to share all of your social handles in the description, either on YouTube or on the podcast. Shamawd, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge you. I want to acknowledge you for the great man you are, the great dad, the great coach, mentor, but more importantly, the amazing human being you are. You know, in the short time we've known each other, what I've really come to appreciate about you is you are living proof of someone of who, when you dream big, when you take inspired action and you do so on a persistent basis, that it's not a question of if you reach your goals. It's just a question of when you'll reach your goals. So I just want to thank you for being a living embodiment of someone who is just committed to showing other people what's possible. So thank you for reminding me of that today, brother. And I just appreciate having you in my life.
Thank you. I appreciate you as well. This is just the beginning for us, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, folks, Shamawd dropped so many valuable nuggets of wisdom that will not only help you succeed in sport, but more importantly, in the game of life. But as I like to remind you every week in the huddle, knowledge is potential power. It's the consistent and focused application of great knowledge that actually creates greater results in life. So my challenge to you is to take one of these valuable nuggets of wisdom and go apply it to your life today. And as I like to remind you every week in the huddle, you are deserving of greatness. You are worthy of greatness. You are greatness. And my only ask from these conversations, if it resonated with you, if it touched your heart, then please share it with a friend, a loved one, a teammate, or just someone you think that would benefit from listening to these positive, inspiring, and empowering ideas. The more people we have listening, understanding, and applying these simple principles to their life, the more blessed this world will be. As always, love having these conversations with you in the huddle. Have a blessed rest of your day, everyone.